19th of November 2019. Tonight at 6:30 at this current moment, we're going into executive session. That's our intent. And according to the Attorney General's recommendations, we're going under Purpose 3, which is, and I will quote, to discuss strategies with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of this public body. And the chair so declares. So at this time, we'll prepare to go into a executive session. Then we will adjourn and we will come back into reconvene the regular session. Mr. Maloney?
Aye.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Plasko?
Yes.
Mr. Hajar?
Aye.
And the board votes yes. So we'll be going now into executive session and reconvening in open public session at 7 o'clock. Thank you. Session which started at 6:30 this evening, and we are now reconvening into our regular public meeting. And as always, let us begin this evening with a pledge of allegiance to our flag, followed by a moment of silent meditation or prayer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all, and please be seated. This evening's show is being recorded by Norwood Community Media for a later showing. Tonight we have under appointments, we have had an executive session at 6:30. We have 3 appointments. The first appointment this evening will be with Mr. Travis Farley, Superintendent of our Recreation Department, giving us his monthly update. Mr. Farley, good evening.
Good evening.
We have your report. Would you like to expand on it?
I would love to. Thank you for your time, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it, members of the board. I kind of just dive right into things. The first big event that we have coming up that we'd like to let the public know about is the Holiday Extravaganza. It'll take place on Saturday, November 30th. It is a completely free event for the public. All the activities will kick off at 1 o'clock. Some of the activities will consist of a horse-drawn carriage ride. We have a reindeer run. We have crafts, we have live music, we have a story time, and we actually have a petting zoo at the Civic Center. So it should be a lot of fun, and most importantly, we'll have a special guest appearance from Mr. and Mrs. Claus. Hopefully they'll be riding on one of our ladder trucks for the fire department. So it's a lot of fun. A big thank you to Norwood Bank and TD Bank. Those are our 2 sponsors for the event. Without their contributions, we couldn't offer this event to the public. A big thank you to Charles River Running, the DPW department, the light department, their hard work on the common, getting the lights ready, the police department. So a big thank. It's kind of a team effort with that. And it's also, I'd like to also add that it's a small business Saturday. This is the 3rd year in a row we've actually done this. We used to be on Sunday. 3 years ago, we decided to make the move to small business Saturday to help maybe add foot traffic on small business Saturday downtown. We think it's been a pretty big hit, so we're looking forward to it. Hopefully we'll get good weather and it should be a fun day. Winter programming, next batch of programming from indoor tot time to preschool prep to all of our adult programming starts after the new year. So if you're still looking to do some activities this winter, we still have plenty of space in all of our winter programming that starts in January. If you want to know more, please contact us at the Civic or just look in our fall winter guide. Our February vacation programming, so if you're sticking around Norwood during February vacation, you're looking for something to do, we have a lot going on in the Civic Center. We have Mustang Sports, we have a circuit maker class and app inventors. We even have a Princess Tea Party coming up. So if you're around February vacation, we have a lot going on. Please, if you have any questions about what we're offering, contact us at the Civic. We'll be advertising more as we get closer as well. And a staple of the Norwood Recreation Department in the winter is in its 49th year is our floor hockey program. We're taking registrations all the way up to the end of the month. It's one of our longest running winter programs. It's a lot of fun. We get kids that are involved with youth hockey to kids that have never picked up a hockey stick before. It's basically just a lot of fun. The kids get to run around in the afternoon, learn a little bit more about hockey. We have a really good group coming back this year for refs and a young man running the program that's involved in youth hockey that we're excited about, so it should be a lot of fun. It's like I said, if you're interested in joining, please contact us at the Civic Center as well. And some of the holiday one-day hits, so programs that are basically low commitment that you can just sign up for that are just one day. We have a Parents' Night Out on Friday, December 6th, 6 to 8:30 for $10. We usually show a Christmas-themed movie and have a big kind of a slumber party in the Civic Center. Should be a lot of fun. We have a Polar Express Night on Monday, December 2nd. Should be a lot of fun. We have a cookie decorating one-day hit class, a gingerbread house decorating class. We have a flea store workshop. We're actually doing a Switch tournament, which is a gaming console, in December as well. If you want more information about these one-day hits, please contact us at the Civic Center. Again, it's a lot of fun. These programs are low commitment. You can just sign up. They're one day. They're fairly affordable. They are affordable. So it should be a lot of fun as well. And I'd just like to remind the public as well that we are holding birthday parties at the Civic Center. So if you are looking for a birthday party in town that's very affordable, please contact us. We have Saturdays from 2 to 4. They are filling up. They're actually becoming more and more popular for residents that are looking for a birthday alternative for the little ones. Something we tried last year that was very popular that we've decided to do again this year. And then for those adults that are looking for fitness activities, just like to remind everyone that we do offer fitness classes again at the Civic Center. Yoga, ballet bar, Mr. Howard's there every morning. So we have a lot of fun with it. We usually have a pretty good crowd there as well. And then last but not least, some facility and playground updates. Unfortunately, the Bond Street playground, the playground that we were hoping to do poured rubber through the Community Preservation Committee. We did all the prep work, but unfortunately the weather just didn't cooperate. We had, I think, 22 days out of 30, 22 days of rain out of 30, and early November didn't cooperate, so we weren't able to pour the rubber this year. We are going to make it a priority as a department to get that done first thing in the spring. So residents shouldn't see that playground close that long once the season gets a little warmer and people want to get out. And the bleachers, the last piece of our gymnasium upgrade, we are having the bleachers installed on Monday the 25th. We're looking forward to it. It's kind of the last piece for the gym upgrade that we're hoping to do. So the gym will be out of commission from the 25th to the 27th, right before Thanksgiving. So that's kind of my report. We have a lot going on. I know it's a lot of information I threw out, but it's exciting. One more thing that I actually forgot to add as well. We don't normally offer a lot during winter vacation as far as program goes, but we actually got a lot of feedback from the public, and Katie Seastead, our program director, did a good job putting together some winter program activities. So we are doing some we're doing a Monday Move and Groove program the week of Christmas Eve and the week of New Year's, and we're also doing a Little Mustangs program on Christmas, the week of Christmas and the week of New Year's as well. So if you want more information about some winter vacation programming, please contact us at the Civic Center.
Thank you for that. Could you just explain to us about the membership FY19 and FY20? There seems to be a drop in numbers, significant.
Yeah, so we actually just started we switched our rec management system from Sportsman to MyRec. It's basically the way that you take in registrations and manage your membership. Last year when we switched over, we onboarded a lot of people, probably way more than we should have. And memberships were about a year long, so about FY20 around that time we saw a little bit of a dip as people didn't re-up, or we added people that we didn't need to our membership database. So that's why you see a little bit of a dip. I think this fall is probably a better accurate number because this is our first full year with the new rec management system. I think this will probably be a better picture of where we're at as far as membership goes. But we onboarded a lot of people just to be safe that we probably didn't need to onboard.
All right, thank you for that. It just seems strange to me that we have all these programs and numbers were going down, but
yeah, it was like I said, we had to switch our whole membership database from Sportsman, which, like I said, is a rec management software, over to MyRec, and we onboarded probably more people than we needed to. So I think this fall FY20 active membership number is probably a more accurate picture of where we're at a membership.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Mr. Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Farley, for coming in. Just something we talked about before the meeting. The bleachers are going in between the 25th and 27th. So for those who don't know, the NOAA Jamboree is this coming weekend at gym sites all over town and probably a couple out of town. But you'll have plenty of seating for people who come down to the Civic Center, even though the bleachers are not yet in. You said you're going to get some chairs, right? We'll bring some chairs.
That's correct. We've been working with the Norwood Basketball Association, Eric Bedard. We are going to have plenty of seating. We're going to bring in some fold-out chairs that we're going to have in there, so we will have plenty of seating for those that are planning on attending that Jamboree at the Civic Center. So if you are hoping to get seating, we will have it there.
It'll be this coming Saturday and Sunday. Right?
That is correct.
I think the girls on Saturday, the boys on Sunday.
That's from what I understand from Eric. That's correct.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Maloney. Mr. Howard, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say, Travis, that the manager's obviously been training you well because you rattled through all that information very clearly and very fast. So I commend you, my friend, and it's a delight seeing you most days down there and doing your thing. And a little more on the Jamboree, if you would, just so the people know just what that is,
Yep.
if they're not aware.
So it's the Nord Basketball Association's biggest fundraiser during the year. They have it at the high, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Maloney, the high school, the middle school, the Savage, and then the Civic Center are the four that I have in town.
They'll probably, I think Zavarian is used possibly. They used to have the Aggie. I'm not sure if they're still using the Aggie. But there's 6 or 7 sites all over the place.
And they have, I forget how many, Eric was just in, he was telling me how many teams they have, and I forget the number.
Out-of-town teams playing now?
I think he said it was, I think it said the Nord teams get free registration for the tournament, and then I think the out-of-town they charge, but I don't know that number off the top of my head. But it was Eric told me the other day, and it was the number that they have coming in is very impressive.
Yeah.
How they put it all together is kudos to them.
That's great.
It's quite a lift. It's really something.
That should be fun.
Oh,
It
yes.
should be a lot of
Some
fun.
good basketball this weekend.
Thank
right
you.
in town.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. I have no questions from my two colleagues to my right, so unless you have something to add, I think we're all set.
No, thank you very much for your time. I know it's kind of hard to rattle through everything, so I appreciate your time. And
Did a great job.
thank you very
Great
much.
job.
Almost talk as fast as Tony.
I try. to keep up with.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Thank you, sir. We have a 7:15, so we still have a few minutes if we can get into new business. Number one, sir. What is that? Oh, well, if they're already here, why don't you have a seat then? We have Mr. James Collins of our Light Department submitting his monthly report and giving us a further update on just about everything under the sun involving electricity. So with that, you have the floor.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Tonight I have with me Darrell Hanson. I have Chris Pollard. Chris is an attorney who specializes in utilities and contracts and things of that nature. He did a lot of legal work, and he was helpful with the 5G technical guide that I brought back to you tonight with the changes. I don't know if you want to have, maybe I could have him go first, and then he could actually get out of here while I finish my report.
That'd be fine, but I would just hope that somebody would give a quick overview to the public at home as to exactly what small cell siting is.
Well, yeah, I'll start. Specifically, we've had a couple of requests in town, none to the light department yet, but we've had a couple that have come before you where companies are looking to place antennas on the top of utility poles in order to supply the density, I guess, that's needed for the texting, the video, the different things that are going more and more on telephones over the airwaves. Eventually, when 5G become a standard, I think it's still a little ways off. Right now, 3 and 4 is more the standard. These antennas need to be about 1 to 200 meters apart. So there'll be a lot of them placed. They can be placed on buildings, they can be placed on poles, they can be placed on light poles, they can be placed on independent structures. But that's where the future is going. The reason these antennas are typically going to be owned by the Verizon, the AT&T, the Sprint of the world. The big communication companies are the ones that are going to be requesting them and operating them, as far as I know.
If I could just ask one question, with different vendors out there, Verizon and Comcast, so on and so on, are they going to fit a certain standard, or are we going to have different types everywhere we look? Tall ones, short ones, fat ones?
To be honest with you, I don't know the answer. That's what we try to control to some degree, is to control what can be put on the pole. The town, I think, I'm going to give you a generic guide that I received from someone on for the town, a generic standard that will help. The board can adopt that, and that will limit some of the colors and different visual things that these things could be, but that would be that would be the aesthetic side of it. The problem, the reason why we split the thing into two is, you know, from a technical point of view, the light department can have their specs for the pole. From the selectmen and the right-of-way point of view, they could have aesthetic standards, and they can have other right-of-way requirements, you know, sidewalks and different things like that. So there'd be really two sets of requirements, one that would be a town requirement, one that would be a utility requirement. I don't know if I helped or hurt with that explanation.
Thank you. So if you want to get into the meat and potatoes here.
Well, the reason why we split this out, I'd like Chris to give you a brief legal explanation for the reason for that, and then if you have any questions for him with respect to this.
Very good.
Sure.
Counsel?
So, as Jim had said, you know, there are two aspects to regulating 5G. If you think about it in terms of, you know, what happens in Eversource's service territory, you know, Eversource obviously is responsible for making sure that certain technical standards are met with respect to what happens on its poles. But it's up to the municipality, the city or the town, to determine what the stuff looks like, what the preferred density is and whatnot. And that's what we're doing here, is the light department has got its technical standards, which are sitting in front of you here, as to you know, how much it's going to weigh, who's going to pay for what, where does the equipment go, where do shutoffs go. You know, the electrical shutoff has to be below the RF exposure field. What does the signage look like? Those types of things, and that's what you have here. The town's job then is, you know, you folks as the town can regulate what it looks like. You know, that you can say, hey, we don't want more than, you know, one cabinet on each pole. You know, because if you've got a pole with, you know, 6 cabinets hanging off the side, and it may not look right. You know, another example is if you've got an area of town where you've got you know, nice looking historic light poles. You can say, yes, you can be in that area, but you've got to you know, use a light pole where the equipment is all blended into the light pole and it all looks the same. That's the overview, the difference between the two. And we've kept those separate because of different jurisdictions. You know, the town is responsible for its piece, the light department's responsible for its piece. Anything else?
If I can, so where is the second document?
I'll provide that to you. That generic one, you're probably going to want to have maybe Murphy Toomey look at that or whoever, right?
Well, the development of those standards, though, needs to involve, I would probably say, 1 or 2 members of the board, because we're going to want to discuss what we want things on that pole to look like. I wouldn't think the lawyer should be telling us that, right? I mean, they're going to make sure what we're doing is legally sound, and the document is legally sound, but as far as deciding on the exact aesthetics, that's got to be.
I think the whole board serves as light commissioners, so
No,
I'd be better served having everybody involved.
I think they're talking about this as light commissioners. The other document would be as the Board of Selectmen and how we handle that. But I think first, we get a generic, and then we can decide
Okay.
where we want to go with it, how we want to
Yeah, there's not gonna be a
process
lot of
that.
variety in what one town does to another. We can choose certain aesthetic standards, but we're kind of limited to
So they're
technology and
associated with the
feasibility.
same thing, but they're separate. Now, you handed out a new version tonight. I don't know what the difference is, but I did look at your other version, the first version, and, you know, it's technical, but you people have looked at it from both legal and the light department staff's concerns, and as a layman who's been involved with the light department quite a bit, I don't see anything that jumps out at me.
So the only difference in the two versions had to do with the labeling of a couple of the
Emergency labeling and so
This,
forth.
Safety labeling?
the diagram in the back of the
The last 2 pages.
page.
Your document says.
Mr. Howard, you have a question?
Are you going to make a presentation, Jim?
No.
First, or, okay.
No, I wasn't planning on
I
it.
have a few questions.
Okay.
If you don't mind, if I could. But first of all, I want to say, again, as a layman, you know, some of the words I have no idea what they mean, but not that many, luckily. But it looks pretty good, the information you put down, and it shows me initially that you're out to protect our light department and our town from these people coming in, that that are gonna use our equipment, if you will, our poles.
That was the goal of it, was really to protect the employees,
Employees, right?
to insulate ourselves from liability to some degree with respect to not allowing them on high voltage pole. I'm very, very concerned about the liability. And then the third thing is you want to make sure engineering that these things that go on us down, they won't make a pole fall over or something like that.
Right.
So those
Yeah,
are-
yeah, because seeing, some of it scares me a bit, candidly, like the cabinets. If we're gonna see these cabinets all over town, 48 inches by 24 by 18, that's a bit scary to me.
And that's a limiting number. In other words, some of them that we've seen photos of have actually been larger than that, so,
On a pole,
on a pole.
that's not pretty.
So,
That, like I say, that bothers me. But, so they must get power from us?
They will be requesting power from us. If possible, we would love to sell them backhaul fiber, but most of them have their own.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I
how
prefer
are
to
they
do
gonna
their
pay
own.
for this power? Is there gonna be a meter on
Oh,
the
there'll
pole?
definitely be a meter on it,
Oh.
and on top of that, they'll pay a rental fee for the pole, but the FCC has severely limited rights as the utility company, and somewhat your right, the selectmen, on what you can do with respect to these.
Yeah, I saw a number somewhere and it wasn't much.
No,
It's 570 is always the safe harbor.
yeah, it's a very, very small number,
Yeah,
but
yeah. And obviously, the gut question of one of these is, we have no choice, right?
really,
I mean, to let them come into the town.
really, I don't think we do. You could
Yeah.
speak to that better.
No, I agree. The FCC has tried to, the Federal Communications Commission has tried to occupy the field on this, and they have said pretty clearly that municipal governments are required to allow small cell technology into their communities. One of the reasons actually that we want to try and keep separate the town's responsibilities from the light department's responsibilities is, from the town perspective, I don't think there's any doubt that there has to be some accommodation, some non-discriminatory accommodation for small cell
But
employment.
is there some word like reasonable accommodation or something like that?
Well, you absolutely have the right to regulate, for example, aesthetics. You absolutely have the right to regulate your rights of ways, public ways,
No, but I
as you
mean-
normally do.
A entity coming in and then more after it, every 100 meters, I mean, that's insane, in my opinion.
And that's part of what I think your job as the Board of Selectmen would be, is to determine, what and how that looks like in Norwood. I think you can come up with, reasonable limitations, reasonable aesthetic regulations, but you just have to apply them in a non-discriminatory fashion.
Because poles in themselves are ugly. I mean, and then you put more stuff on them and they're uglier, But thank you for your courtesy, gentlemen. So you said every 100 meters, you don't really know how many of these sightings we could have in the town of our 3 by 3 miles.
No, and that 100 meter just come from an article that I read. That's how they said in one of the technical magazines I subscribe to, the IEEE Spectrum, which is an engineering group. They had a description, and that's what they said. As it gets fully deployed, that's what they expect to see, or that's what they need to make it work.
But in my opinion, as a layman, but a handyman, I could see like a cabinet here and there, but an aerial all over the place, something like that, in my opinion, but maybe not. Maybe you need a cabinet on every pole. I don't know. But, and here's the $64 question, okay? This RF power. So say a person has a house and they got one of these deals in front of their house, are they in jeopardy?
So the FCC does regulate RF emissions. And the FCC has certain guidelines that the small cell installations have to meet. And part of what we've done in the small cell standards is to require these folks to prove on an annual basis that they're meeting the requirements established by the FCC.
You mean on emissions, right? On emissions?
Yes, correct.
So,
Correct.
And in addition to that, one of the other things, on each pole that these are placed, there's a disconnect switch. And before any employees, light department employees work on, or cable employees work on that pole, their instruction from us will be to shut that one off while they're working, while they're at that pole, so that we won't have any, as you're close up to these things, I think the
even our people exposed to this stuff, yeah.
the
we
people
don't
will
want
be
that.
exposed, and they'll be very close.
Right. So, very ballpark, Mr. Collins, what do you feel we're talking about for these guys starting, putting in this stuff here? What would you say down the road that we're talking about?
Well, I know you've had a couple of applications. I know in other towns they've been installed. If you drive up Walpole Street, right over the town line, you'll see ones on a pole right there now. If you go up Washington Street, up near Bird Park, there's one on a pole there. So they're installing them around us, so I would anticipate that it will happen sooner than later.
Which means?
When we get the applications, I mean, we don't have any applications in hand today.
You don't know.
I think within the next
So any day, you're saying?
6 months, it could be
Realistically.
sooner.
Yes.
It definitely is going to be the future.
Gentlemen,
Yeah, I
thank you
think
very
we'll
much.
definitely-
Thank you,
If I could add a little bit to that, from our industry, the cable industry, what they're predicting is that the first wave is going to be the 4G LTE, which is kind of what we're using now. Problem is that the big towers are all saturated, so they need to get these antennas out closer to the public. So they're going to be pretty far spread apart. The reason why they're going to become closer together is because the higher frequencies that they're using, higher frequencies don't travel as far through the air. So that's where they're going to need more. And that's not until 5G comes out. And what they're predicting in my industry anyhow is that it's probably, in areas like ours, a good 5 years before we get to that point. They're going to start off in the cities, right, where most of the populations are. And it'll probably take about 5 years for them to start rolling out into the suburbs.
Gotcha. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
gentlemen.
Mr. Hujai, you had a question?
Yes, first of all, Jim, thanks for sitting with me a couple weeks ago to go over this document. I appreciate it. My question, just on the last bullet on page 4, I just want to make sure we're okay. We say, if in the future Norwood Light requires space on said pole, the attaching entity must relocate the equipment at their expense. I'm just concerned, I'll repeat what I had said to Jim. Everything else that we talked about was resolved. We require the applicant to receive approval from us, from the light department, I guess aesthetically from the board of selectmen. They have to pay for everything to get that there. And then we're gonna come in 6 months later and say, oh, no, we wanna do something there, get it off. And we have the right to tell them to pay again.
We're going to try.
Okay, I'll just say that is, in this whole document that I read through again, that's the only weak part that I see, is that someone's gonna challenge that and say, you can't make me pay twice when you gave me approval for it to be there the first time, so that,
So
that-
I'm sorry.
no, it's okay.
So the rationale is, these are electric utility poles, first and foremost. And the light department is trying to preserve its ability to use them for their primary purpose. And so the thought is, yes, you can come in and you can use our electric utility poles for a secondary purpose, knowing that there is a primary purpose, and should we ever need to make use or changes to use it for its primary purpose, you're going to have to adjust your secondary purpose. And just so you know, we're telling you this at the beginning, it's going to be at your cost. That's the rationale for it.
That's fine. I think it's gonna be less than 5 years. My comrades are telling me from my past employment that when it starts to come, you'll know. And I think it's great that we're going to have a set of rules and regulations that govern it, because you're way better in a position to control how things are gonna go, rather than waiting for a bunch of applications and then trying to say, uh-oh, the genie's out of the bag, what do we do? So that's why I also think it's very important that at some point we do the aesthetics end of it, because that goes hand in hand. I mean, they can give permission to do it, but if we're looking to control exactly how it's gonna look or the size, or whatever it is, that needs to be in place. So, but thank you for doing this, I appreciate it.
Mr. Plasko, sir.
Try to move this along, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion, if you'll entertain it. I'd like to move that in our capacity as light commissioners, we approve the standards for small siding for the Norwood Municipal Light Department, effective November 20th, 2019.
Second.
And I have a second on that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. Anything from Mr. Hanson this evening?
Did you have an electric update, Jim?
Have you, the transmission line, I'll be brief, since I took so much time.
Yes, you don't have to wait if you don't want to. You're free to leave if you'd like.
Thank you.
It was good to see you all.
Thank you.
Thank you for your
Good to see you again.
The transmission line is scheduled to be put back into service, or the new line, actually, it's not one that we've had before, it's scheduled for November 22nd. It's still on schedule, we're hoping for that, we've got along this far. The apartments, Avalon Bay, all the meters were installed this week, so they'll be probably getting occupied very shortly. Washington Street, the project's just getting out of the ground. Skating club coming along pretty good if you've been over there. It's gonna be a good customer. St. Catherine's getting started. We finally heard from the MBTA solar folks. They're talking about February now, they're gonna turn it on.
So there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, it's all done. The MBTA
But
is all
there's
done.
some
What
issue not involving us.
The issue did not involve us, it involved them refinancing all of their projects with some third-party company. So. The landfill solar RFP is just about ready to go out the door, and we have a customer on Vanderbilt Ave that's upgrading to some sort of server farm, and they're going to increase their electrical load fairly significantly. Municip's conversion, electric utility bills are scheduled now for March. We're going to be through the cutover in March. We're still getting over a few issues with them on that. 136 SS Road, I have a report attached. That's 93% complete. They're really starting to wrap it up. It looks like a real building now. Really looking
The
good.
thing I like best, Jim, is that the trucks are gonna be inside this winter.
They are,
That's
they are,
wonderful.
they
It
are.
really is. That's a big thing.
It is a
Long
big
time
thing.
coming.
It is a big thing. I think we're the last light department to
Have the trucks inside. Yeah, but here it is. Norwood.
Green Community actually moving along. The town's doing a variety of things. Light department did their part, but I know the general manager's office takes the bulk of the work. Electric vehicles, we're picking up a few more. We're up to 11 now on the program. And that continues to grow. We have a second customer that's applied for the solar grant. It's not knocking down the door, but at least we're getting a little bit more than the small cell we just talked about. Any questions on the electric?
I have none personally.
Just one on the solar, if I could, Mr. Collins, please. Do you have in round numbers what the grant would be to an average house if they do the full amount?
Well, in Norwood, most of the homes would be an 8 to 10 kW size system. If you had a 10 kW size system, we're giving 60 cents, and the state gives 60 cents a watt, so that would be a $12,000 grant is what we would give
That's
you.
a
It would be half from
$12,000.
us, half from the state. So that would be against whatever you paid to put the system in. I think the system maybe in the $30,000-$40,000 range, but I'm no expert.
I think you're right. I think that's the case, from what I've looked at it. I think it's
So
25, 30, 35,
Okay.
something like
So
that.
you could get like $12,000.
And the important thing is, you should have a new roof if you're gonna do that. I mean.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot involved. I don't profess to be the solar expert, but I mean, at least we have some money available, and we're in the state is matching the numbers that we have, so.
And what a guy said to me today, I never had thought of, he said, you know, they do put a lot of holes in your roof when they put those up there. And I said, yeah, that's right. Just a thought.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Just
John.
one question, Jim, on the landfill solar and battery storage. I know that's down the road a bit, but that's a good long-term way to go. But can you just describe, is it a single size that you're looking for? Is it expandable? Are you just looking this for Norwood use, or?
All of this would be for Norwood's use. Anything we put in that we try to put out would be for our use. The size is what we could fit from the previous study up on the landfill was, I think it was a 2.6, do you remember? Was it I think it was maybe 2.6 kilowatts, maybe 3. It wasn't terribly large. I mean, our landfill, compared to some other towns, is not that physically large, and it's on a hill. Part of the land was also actually owned by, I think, Recreation or somebody else, so we could only use certain pieces of it. The battery storage is you can almost break that off and make that a separate piece. I would envision eventually that we would have several battery storage sites around town. Probably one where we put the temporary generators now at the substation, we'll probably put one there. Maybe at the other station at Dean Street. And what we would use, you charge these up off peak, and then when the peak came, you'd discharge them to lower your peak. But on top of that, they would act as a generator. So it would act as a non-emitting generator, so to speak. Granted, you'd have a limited life. If you really had a blackout, you'd have so many hours of power, and then you'd have to recharge it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Seeing nothing else from the board,
Just one quick thing. On that, the MBTA solar project, would you be kind enough to make sure the assessor, Mr. McDonough, is notified of that information that you have?
Yeah, well, one thing that we told them, we won't turn them on unless you have a pilot or something in place, so.
Yeah, we've never been able to make good contact with anybody over there.
Yeah,
so-
we'll make sure we've told them that before, and we'll tell them that again.
Well, they don't have to have a pilot. They can just
Well,
pay,
no,
they can just pay
have to,
taxes.
they have to have an agreement with you,
Right.
how they're gonna pay the taxes.
Right, thank you.
well, thank you, sir. Mr. Hanson?
Thank you, Mr. Bishop. Don't really have much to report this month, but I did want to tell everybody that we are doing the food pantry promotion again. And I didn't realize it'd been this long, but I looked it up before coming over. And we've been doing this now for 10 years. And we average about $4,000 a year that we give to the food pantry. So it's been a great promotion. And the way it works, just to remind people at home, for every new customer that we sign up during this promotion period, we donate $50 to the food pantry. Any existing customers who upgrade their service in any way, we give $25 to the food pantry. So it's a great opportunity. If you've been thinking about switching from one of the other providers to us, it's a great opportunity, great timing to do it now, so we can help take care of the people who really need it.
Excellent. Good job.
Thank you.
Anything else?
That's all I've got tonight.
How are we
Mr.
doing on
Chairman.
the research with, we spoke about it off camera,
Sure.
with the extenders and so on?
The mesh network, there's many players coming into the field right now, so we're focusing on 4 or 5 of the larger ones, and we've got some tests going on in the office. In some of our homes. I'm going to try to get a few more spread out around town so we can get a better feel for it. The discouraging part that I'm seeing so far is the back office piece of it, the piece that we use as a tool to help troubleshoot, is very expensive. The vendors who are manufacturing these are going to try to sock it to us. So part of this trial is to find the one that works well and doesn't rob us on the other end, running it, so. But it is coming along, it's very impressive stuff, and I hope to get it rolled out fairly
So
quickly.
the market keeps changing constantly.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. Anything else, gentlemen, at all?
Just on the, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Just on the financials, Harold, it seems to be steady as she goes. We say this a lot in terms of customer count, and net income and so forth. We seem to be stable, which is what we're looking for.
It is looking pretty good. The July numbers that you saw there, a little skewed because that's when we switched over to Munis, so some of the bills were late going out, so, profit margin for that 1 month looks bigger than it probably will pan out in the end, so.
Okay.
But yeah, the numbers are looking very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Maloney. Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good
Have a
evening.
good night.
Thank you.
Okay, our last appointment for the evening is at 7:40, which this is 7:40, with Mr. Jack Tolman, Mr. Brian McDonough, representing the Norwood High School Hall of Fame. And they're going to speak tonight in the high school 2019 Alumni Weekend and Hall of Fame inductions.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Tolman. Thank you.
Good evening, how are you? Mr. McDonough, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr.
How
McDonough.
are you doing?
Surprised you're in town, not on a bike somewhere.
Planning 2020.
It's all yours.
Okay, well, Mr.
Okay.
Tolman begin.
I'm going to begin. I'm Jack Tolman, Vice President of the Hall of Fame, and thank you for allowing us to take the time to talk about the Alumni Weekend. This is the 5th annual Alumni Weekend, and what that is a way we packaged all the events that are happening over the Thanksgiving weekend all together in this brochure that we're going to send on social media and promote to let everybody know the different things that are happening around town. And of course, the first thing starts off with the football game. But what's exciting about the away game in Dedham this year is that NCM is going to broadcast the game live back to Norwood. Been talking with Dedham High School right now and their IT department as well as Dedham TV to all work together. It's a little tricky the way we're going to pull it off, but we feel pretty strongly that we can do it with the technology that we have, and everybody's on board. So that'll be exciting. The first time an away game will be here, available here in Norwood, so people at home cooking will know when the game's over. So everybody comes home on time.
Time to set the table.
Right. But related to that, I was able to kind of convince Jim Forrest, who's the principal of Dedham High, who lives in Norwood, and Hugh Galligan, who lives in Dedham, and the principal of Norwood High, to have a friendly lunch bet wager on the game. So that's a fun new thing. Maybe that'll be a new tradition that will stop. But we're going to start that this year. There's 6 reunions that weekend, 4 on Friday and 2 on Saturday. So the local locations in Norwood, which is great for the community, have everybody coming back home to their old hometown and to celebrate their reunions at the different locations. And then on Saturday, we're going to, before the Hall of Fame induction, every year we rededicate the display cases that are in the walking track. And this year we're going with the reunion theme, where the class of '74 is having their reunion, which Mr. McDonough is a member of, and the class of '84. So 2 cases are going to be filled with memorabilia that people have dropped off at my office to fill it up to create that theme, and they'll be in place for until next year. And at that point, then the Hall of Fame induction will begin at 1 o'clock, and that is also going to be broadcast live for the first time. And from that, Mr. McDonough will talk about the inductees.
Right. Well, thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Yes, exciting. This is a great kickoff to the holiday season, and we're really lucky to be able to tie this in as we begin the Thanksgiving weekend and follow up. Really excited this year. We have 6 decades of inductees being inducted this year. Starting off with my old wrestling coach, Coach Bruce Gregory, was one of the top wrestling coaches at Norwood High. Had probably more state champ and New England champ than almost anybody in the state. During the 80s, his program was top in the state and won state titles, and very, very fortunate to have Bruce Gregory going in this year's induction, and he was a coach from 1973 to 1984. As I said, we have 6 decades, and we started out with 1957, the class. William Wenstrom, who was an outstanding football and outdoor track athlete. Then in 1967, Ken Sheehan. Interesting, Ken was the first state champion wrestler here at Norwood. So it's kind of appropriate we have the wrestling coach and a first state champion. Ken actually went on to play football at Harvard. So unfortunately it's posthumous, but his family members will be there, and good to recognize Ken. Then we go in the class of 82, Joe DiCaligero, another three-sport athlete, football, indoor track, and outdoor track, state titles, and a great track athlete. Then we go to 1990 with Sue Drummy Daly. Sue Drummy, that name might sound familiar, as her grandfather was Jim Drummy, longtime Norwood Board of Selectmen, treasurer. I think he had multiple jobs here in town, and a great family. And Sue lives in Foxborough, outstanding three-sport athlete, field hockey, basketball, and softball. And we're looking forward to have her come in. Next inductee from class of 92 is Mike Whittier, another state champ, cross-country, indoor, and outdoor track. So we've got a good list of track athletes being represented here. Interesting, Mike will not be able to join us as he is out on the seas. He's a Navy, career man in the Navy, and he's out. Unfortunately, he won't be able to be with us, but somebody from his family will be there representing him, and we're going to see if we can maybe get a live video from him. And finally, from the class of 2001, Jim Martin. Jim was one of Norwood's greatest baseball players in 2000, but also an outstanding hockey player and golf player. He is presently the assistant varsity coach at Stony Brook College in New York. He was instrumental in the hiring present coach at Norwood High, Kevin Hygo, so you can see that he can pick out some pretty good talent, and we're really excited to have Jim Martin come in to this year's induction. So again, I'd like to thank the board for allowing us to come in and kind of promote this and get the word out to the community. And as Jack had mentioned, that the football game will be live, so will induction ceremony be live. So we'd love to have people come in. It's at noontime. The reception for the inductees and guests are welcome to come in. We put a small little buffet on, and then at 1 o'clock we do the video and the presentation in the auditorium. And anybody who's watched any of Jack Tolman's work, I think, is second to none in the state, and he always puts on a fabulous video, and the feedback we get from the people and the inductees is how amazing it is. So really looking forward to this, and it's been a great experience, and we expect the same thing this year as well.
One thing I want to add, this is a free event. It's open, it's free to the public. The high school's wide open for tours. And I just, it's an exciting time for, perhaps if you had the reunion the night before, if you're getting ready to go to the reunion, come back to the high school and take a walk through.
Very good. Thank you for your presentation. Questions from the board? Mr. Maloney?
I just want to comment, it's a terrific weekend. It's one of these things, and I suppose it's done in a lot of places, but nowhere as well as we do it in Norwood. And it's an outstanding thing. They're going to win the game, by the way. If you straight up no points either way, take Norwood in that game. It's on Thursday. Do yourself a favor and win yourself some money. But and then I see my buddy John DiCaligero is one of the recipients. It might force me to show up. 10 years I coached basketball against him, didn't win. So anyway, but thanks very much for all you do. This is a great weekend. Looking forward to it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Howard?
Just want to say, mainly to the public, because I think you folks know, we have three Norwood High grads here, Plasko, Bishop, and Howard, and I'm proud to say that. And we all really give a darn about that school on the hill, you know. And this is an exciting thing, the Hall of Fame every year. It really is. It's a great thing. Thank you, fellas, for what you do. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Ajah?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank you guys, doing a great job, appreciate it. Mr. Howard needs to know his colleagues a little bit better. I did graduate Norwood High in 1975.
Excuse me.
So,
I'm sorry.
read or pay attention more, but don't worry about it, Alan. Yeah.
Thank you for...
The real old members, yeah, sure, he's got it right. but-
No, thank you for adding that, Dave. You corrected me. I appreciate it.
You're doing a great job. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I should have known that.
Thank you. I don't believe there's any other questions from this side of the table, but I personally want to thank both of you for what you've done over the years and what you continue to do every year at this time. You do magnificent work, and especially Mr. Tolman with his video expertise.
And if I could also, I'd like to thank our committee who met prior to this, that does it. We have a group of 15 or 20 individuals, town folk that do a great job all year, and I got to give a shout out to them, because as you all know, you can't do it alone, and we have a great committee, so shout out to the Hall of Fame committee.
I'm glad to see Kenny Sheehan on there, too.
Yes, yeah, well deserved.
Even though it is posthumously.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, did you say you played at Harvard, so you played in the late 60s?
Yes, yeah.
You probably played in that 29-29 tie with Yale.
Good question, yeah.
1968 or 68.
Yeah, his son will be accepting his award, so
Very good.
nice to see.
Very good. Thank you,
All
John.
right, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that concludes our appointments for the evening, so we'll step right into new business. Number one, Douglas Mayberry, 25 Adams Street, submitting a request to use the town common on Saturday, June 20th, 2020, from 1 p.m. to 1:45 p.m. for a wedding ceremony.
Move to
Second.
approve.
Motion to approve in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous. Number two, Sarah Young, 25 Channel Center Street, Boston, submitting a request for a one-day malt beverage license on December 5th, 2019, from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. at 61 Endicott Street, Building 26, second floor. And I believe she expects approximately a dozen people at that reception.
Motion approved?
Second.
I have a motion to approve and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous. That brings us to number three, Viola Babula, representing Verizon, submitting the PEG Access Grant report for the third quarter 2019. Information, gentlemen?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion for information and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, unanimous. Niall Connors, franchise service manager for Verizon, submitting notice regarding changes to Verizon TV programming. Information?
So moved.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous. Aus of 18 Plimpton Avenue, apartment number 2, submitting application for a Class 2 dealer's license, public hearing required.
Motion.
Public hearing.
Second?
I have a motion to set up a public hearing for the application of a Class 2 dealer's license, and I have a second.
Yep, on the motion.
On the motion.
Christina, can you have these people fill in the missing information on the application when, in time for the hearing? There was, I think, 3 sections that went unanswered, and I think it's important, so, thank you.
That was on the application for Class 2?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. So I have a motion for a public hearing and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous. Number 6, Percival Brewing Company LLC, doing business at 83 Moore Street, submitting an application for an entertainment license. And before we get going on that, I just want to say they did previously have a entertainment license, and for some reason or another, they allowed it to lapse, but now they're coming back at us, and this is going to be not a reinstatement, but a new license. But they have had one in the past. Questions?
Was it, I thought I remembered that. Was this the same details as far as the days and everything?
Yes, the only thing that wasn't specified here was music, and what they're going to have is a 3-piece live band, I believe, as the entertainment.
It's going to be weekdays and weekend, right?
It's going to be Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
The license will be weekdays, which is Monday through Saturday.
Motion approved?
Second?
Anything on the motion?
No, that's fine.
I have a motion to approve and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Aaron and Martha Greenfield, 206 Rock Street in Norwood, submitting a request to set up a electric menorah on the town common during the Hanukkah holiday for 8 days, beginning on the 22nd of December, and to hold a Hanukkah menorah lighting ceremony on December 22nd, 2019 at 5 p.m.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Last year, I had the pleasure of being down there when the Temple from Canton, I believe, those people put up the menorah. I think it's delightful that people from Norwood are doing it this year, and I just look forward to it once again, and I make a motion that we approve it.
On the motion?
On the motion, Mr. Plasko.
I just wanted to, I'm in favor, I have no problem, but it was new last year to similar having the nativity scene on the common. And originally, they did not have one of the signs that our regulations require, and I think you spoke to him, Mr. Manager.
That's
I
correct.
just want to make sure this is, as far as I know, a little different group of people doing it, that they're aware of the same requirement.
Good point.
Otherwise, no problem with the display at all.
Right.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
So on there, just to Bill's point, if on section 4E, it talks about the signage required, so that's where you can point them. But they're also requiring electricity, and again, in our rules, it says needs for electricity and lighting must be coordinated with the sponsors, by the sponsors, with the Norwood Municipal Light Department, who shall arrange for permitted uses. The sponsors shall be responsible for all related costs. How do they propose to
It's
pay?
the same group as last year, it's just Aaron and his wife happen to live in Norwood.
Yeah.
It was the rabbi who applied directly last year. They paid, there was about a $60 connection cost, and then we estimated the electric cost at around $4, and a donation was made to the light department. It wasn't a donation, a check was cut for the small amount for it. So they took care of it last year. It's the same group doing it, so we won't have to do any work, so we'll make sure we collect the
That's fine.
$4 in electric charges this year from them.
Good, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So I have a
Rates
motion,
haven't gone
I
up,
believe,
so
a
probably
second.
still poor.
Anything else on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen, for that. That concludes our new business. We have additional new business. David Dupree of the Norwood Space Center submitting a request for a one-day malt alcohol beverage license, November 23rd, 2019, from 7:30 until 10:30 for a fundraiser event. And let me just note this, there will be a police detail at that event because they are expecting about 250 people.
Motion approved?
On the motion, Mr.
On the
Chairman.
motion.
Sorry.
ahead.
Copy of service training certificate attached, no. Are they going to provide one prior to the issuance of the license? And if not, they should be told that they need to provide it.
Mrs. Mulvihill, can you check into that tomorrow?
And that would be my only stipulation to the vote of yes, is that provided that the training certificates are provided to the board.
Do we require it?
It's on their property,
Well,
not our
We don't
property.
require
right?
it per se, but I'd be interested in seeing what they have to say because they have a capacity down there for 300 people, expecting 250. I would just ask the question of whether they intend to or not. And could you just CC Mr. Hajar on that? Thank you. So I have a motion and a second to approve with the stipulations as noted. All in favor?
I'm sorry, what was that stipulation?
We're going to question the insurance certificate, whether they don't
Training
have one,
certificates.
but they're not required to have one. But
Training certificates.
I'd like to know if they have one also.
Just, not the insurance, the serving certificates. They allow them, the training
tips?
certificates.
The tips?
Or whatever other alcohol management class they may or may not have gone. I would like to see that they have something for getting the license. That's all.
On that, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
When you say may or may not, if it's may not, am I voting no on this?
It says, it's asked the question, do they have or don't have, and they said no, so I think we have the answer right there, don't we?
That's on the,
If I could, Mr. Chairman, it's likely
Sure.
they're hiring a caterer.
that was going to be my
So he has to
question.
apply for the license, a caterer has to sell it. We don't give a wine and beer, I mean, you can, but they're gonna be required to go through a licensed caterer. So the actual applicant may not have that certificate per se, but I'm sure we can verify that
It was
he's
my
in fact
understanding
going
that it
through
was
a
going to be an
caterer.
outside.
That's how these events run.
So that answers that. It'll go under the heading of the server itself. I don't know where I've
They
seen it,
always
but
have it, they always
I
have it.
believe it's an outside vendor who's going to do the service of alcohol, food, and so
So
on.
there's a motion to approve and a second.
So with that said, all in favor?
All right?
Opposed? Unanimous. That brings us to number 9, Olga Abadella, the South Norwood Committee, submitting a request to place a creche on the lawn of the Morse House located at 1265 Washington Street for the holiday season.
Which has been done for many years.
Correct.
Motion approved.
Second?
On the motion?
On the motion,
Okay, so, not to belabor the point, but if we had rules and regulations approved, this issue would be covered, so now we don't. So, it really should follow the same as what we do for the town common, and that is, with regards to making sure that there's a sign that indicates the town is not supporting any denomination. I don't know what you want to do about cost, because I don't know if this is lighted. Did she say lighted?
I
It
think,
is
I
lighted.
think,
It is lighted.
I think our,
It is lighted, so
I think our current position of policy, if you will, was until the end of December, when the manager puts things together, and, before December, and gets back to us, that we follow the past practice, and those who have been using it, this has been there for many years, and that we should follow the same practice we've had. And I think they have had a sign.
There is a sign.
Yeah.
there isn't an.
But this has been here for years, it's nothing new.
okay, but, not to have a big discussion about, but we didn't approve it. We didn't approve people staying at the Morse House based on past practice rules and regulations, because there are none. So, there's nothing
We
written.
said as we have in the past,
Okay.
those who.
No, that's not what we said.
Those who have been using it continue to use it for this year,
But-
up to December 31st.
But we didn't say under what conditions. There's no way did that motion say that.
I think it's
So
implied.
I just think we're treating it a little bit differently at the Morse House than we are at Town Common. The whole intent of the rules and regulations was for a little bit more consistency. But
Would
I'm going to support this because I think it's okay, but just to point out the inconsistencies of this,
That's
that's
your
all.
opinion, I don't think there is an inconsistency.
Well, there is. There's nothing to hang your hat on with regards to that. Past practice, show me in writing what the past practice says. There's nothing.
Well, that's why it's past practice.
Yeah, okay, right. That's a good thing to hang your
as
hat
far as
on.
electricity, I think there's one small bulb that lights the baby Jesus, so.
I
Yeah,
assure
not
you
worried
that
about
the
that.
cost of the electricity will be donated on behalf of the
I am sure it will be.
to the light department.
But again, as in past years, we have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. That brings us up to the next page. George Mickley of number 1 Warren Street, that's Warren Street, submitted a letter of intent in serving on the Library Board of Trustees. Questions from the board on that,
Mr. Chairman,
sir?
that vacancy requires to be filled by
Joint meeting.
joint meeting of Board of Selectmen and the library. I'm not sure if my information is correct, but I believe this might be the only applicant. Do you remember what deadline we put? We did put a deadline, didn't we, for applications?
I don't know. This is the only
Yeah, so I guess I'm suggesting that if we had several applicants, we might need almost a separate meeting to be able to interview and have both boards present, but if it's just one applicant, maybe we could have a joint meeting with the library here during the beginning of one of our meetings and handle this, even if we started early like we do when we have executive sessions,
What
instead of a separate
What
meeting,
about the two chairmen take care of it?
because the law says that the two boards.
Boards.
Do they? Yeah, okay.
Well, I'll make a motion if you want a motion on that.
Yes,
Set a
please.
meeting, a combined meeting of the library trustees and the Board of Selectmen at one of our upcoming Board of Selectmen meetings.
And I'd like to thank that gentleman for stepping forward, too. There is one vacancy to be filled.
Second.
So the motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous. Under memoranda, Selectmen's meeting for approval of the board meetings of the minutes from July 9th and 23rd, 2019.
Can we vote them separately? Because I was absent on the 23rd, and I know I can, but I prefer not to vote on meetings that I
Okay,
wasn't
we'll
present.
vote, with the exception of Mr. Hajar, we'll vote on July 9.
No.
No, he doesn't want to vote on the 23rd.
We don't want to, okay, the other way around. Let's vote on the July 29 minutes.
Move to approve?
I have a motion to approve in a second. All in favor, all opposed, unanimous. And the minutes of July 23rd with Selectman
Motion to approve
Hajar
is submitted.
abstaining. I
Second.
have a motion to approve and a second. All in favor? All opposed?
Abstain?
And there'll be a 4-0 vote on that 23rd. With that said, I believe it brings us up to manager's update.
It does, Mr. Chairman. I have several items for the board this evening. If NCM could pull up the first photo, don't worry, there's only two.
Hey, at this point in the game,
This past week, I had the privilege of spending several days in Washington, D.C. with the Norwood High Senior Civics class. We were able, for a second year in a row, to get grant funding to bring the class down there to study careers in public service. And this picture here is actually in Congressman Lynch's office. We took a tour of the Capitol building. We also got a chance to meet with his staff, and Congressman Lynch actually took about a half an hour out of his day to come and meet with the students and talk to them and answer questions. So on the one hand, it was a great experience for them. I want to make sure we thank Congressman Lynch for his efforts, not only what he does for us on a day-to-day basis, but for the amount of time he spent with the students. And in particular, as you know, Congress is in session. It was a busy day with a lot going on. There are two people in particular who pulled a lot of strings to actually get Congressman Lynch to leave a voting session and come and spend a half an hour with us and then head back into voting. We actually, at one point, when his chief of staff came in to get him, to tell him he had to go back to voting, we actually put the TV on and watched as we saw him walk into the House floor about 10 minutes later. So Teddy Mulvihill and Helen Abdullah Donahue both called a lot of friends and colleagues they have in Washington and pulled all the strings they have, and that was what was able to get half an hour of Mr. Lynch's time during a very, very busy congressional period of time. So it was a great trip for the students, and just a big thanks to Congressman Lynch as well as to Teddy and Helen for making sure that we were able to get his attention to spend a few minutes with the students. Thank you. The other item, the Forbes Hill closing, I would just ask, it's ministerial in nature, that the board approve me to sign any documents as advised by town council. Next week we have a closing scheduled for Forbes Hill, the middle of the week, so I would just ask that the board authorize me, we've done it before, but to be safe, to sign any final documents so we're not there on the day of passing paper, so to speak, with something left to be signed and then we're running out to get somebody.
So moved.
Second.
so I have a motion to do the final signings. If I remind people home, the final signings on Forbes Hill.
Is that Wednesday?
Monday, Wednesday's the deadline day, so we're targeting Monday. It could be Wednesday, though.
Excellent. Well done, well done.
So I have a motion and a second to authorize the manager to sign those documents. Anything on the motions at all? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. So for the public at home at large, if everything goes properly this coming week, we will no longer own the Forbes property. It will be sold in its entirety.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
For $13 million.
For $13 million. Update on the Morse House. We believe we will be able to use the Morse House after December 31st. We had the fire inspector and the building commissioner go through the building. We have had to do a little bit of work on the building. We've had to add exit signs. We've had to do a little bit of accessibility work in the bathroom and on a couple of the door jambs to make sure it meets the current code. We do have to limit the occupancy to 49. The ground floor could hold more than 49, but if we allow occupancy higher than 49, it triggers a different set of code requirements that would require probably substantial investment in the building. We'd have to hardwire smoke and CO2 detectors as well as emergency exit lights. So by limiting the occupancy class to 49, we're able to make those adjustments. We'll be able to occupy the building. The second floor of the building is not available for public use. Now, that's not a safety issue. It's not that the second floor is unsafe. It's just not handicap accessible. You're not allowed to use have open to the public a public section of a building like that without having any ADA compliance or capacity. I don't envision in the future there being any ADA compliance or an elevator for the second floor of the building. The second floor is actually built on two separate floors. There's a substantial height difference between one half of the house and the other. So to modify the building and put an elevator in to be able to access that second floor, we'd be looking at substantial renovations to the building. It's not to say we couldn't do it.
More than a pool house?
It probably wouldn't cost us a pool house, but you'd probably be looking at maybe a half a pool house, a third a pool house. I could be off. I mean, the elevator would likely well exceed six figures, but you have the problem of how do you raise half the building 6 inches or drop half the other half of the building 6 inches. So while it's technologically feasible, I just don't know if we would actually go down that route without any idea of a use of the second floor. We'll have to do a couple of other small adjustments, but the majority of the work has been done, and the building will be able to be used by small groups after the first of the year. It's not eligible to be used by a public body to hold a meeting. I know the Historic Commission has held public meetings there before, so if the Board of Selectmen wanted to have a road show, you wouldn't be allowed to have a meeting there. The requirements for an open meeting or for a public body to meet are separate from the ADA code. So we may at some point look at making some of those adjustments there, but there again, we got to be careful that if we invest $5,000 to put in the proper kind of accessible door to allow a public meeting, we may have to make other changes, and do we want to spend what could end up being tens of thousands of dollars for a public body to meet there? But that doesn't exclude somebody from holding a session there or holding an information session or anything like that, or events. It's just a public body, so an official town governing body could not meet and hold a public meeting there.
Thank you for that. Before I get to Mr. Plasko, Mr. Howard?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I could, Mr. Manager, I understand it was said that there's some type of school class being held there periodically.
Yeah,
I would like detail on that to see if we want that to continue or not.
Sure. It's in brief, it's about a dozen kids. It's a Nepalese cultural group that teaches their kids just a little bit about their native culture once a Sunday. So, is it a school group?
That's a lot different than was said.
Yeah, so my apologies. I absolutely reminded me in my head, I think it's a school group because everything's running around. Yeah, there's the kids and they're learning about their own culture. But it's a small group of Nepalese kids from the community and some surrounding communities that they were looking for sort of a home, if you will, years ago to do their cultural, some of their cultural programs.
For now, that's fine, yeah.
It's a relatively small group. If it grew, we'd probably be a little bit more concerned.
Thank you both. Mr. Plasko?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We were discussing potential regulations for the use that Mr. Jah had put together. And some of us had concerns about ongoing the condition and whether we're going to be able to meet them to keep the building open. I think from the report the manager gave, it looks like, that's going to be reasonable. We can go that way. So I'd like to put on next week's agenda those rules and regulations for further discussion. I think generally, personally speaking for myself, they were good, but I still had one main point having to do with discussion about a committee, and I think I had a half a dozen other questions that we could just walk through and either answer them and make a change or not make a change once we walk through them. Otherwise, I think the bulk of the regulations would cover us for use. The other issue was long-term, what we really want to do, and you kind of indirectly addressed some of that too, that we still have to address those questions. But that may take 3, 5, 6 months, whatever, maybe longer, to really decide what the future of that building's going to be with the town. And I think in the meantime, these set of regulations, as we finally finalize them, would be good to cover us during that period. So I'd like to make a motion that we add that to next week's agenda for discussion.
Do I have a second on that motion?
Yes.
I have a second by Mr. Maloney. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Speaking of Mr. Maloney, you have a question?
Mr. Mizuko, one thing
Yes, sir.
regarding the Morse House, you mentioned the building inspector and the fire department. We also have to confer with our insurance company too, right?
We did. We've conferred with them. It's compared to the rest of our portfolio, it's a relatively small portfolio. They agree with our assessment that it's for an older building of that nature. If we're looking, there's a couple of small repairs they want us to make. Just that step in the front has just got a crack in the concrete step. We'll take care of that. That won't be too big of a deal. They're okay with us setting an occupancy limit of 49 and applying the applicable code. There again, they would have some restrictions if we were to change the use of the building. And it's important to know that when the town took the possession of the building and the last tenant left the building, we didn't really issue a C of O. It just sort of went from being a single-family residence to sort of a public occupancy building. So we're now formalizing that process to make sure that it's inspected annually. If we wanted to do something different, whether we wanted to increase that number beyond 49, or if we were going to lease it to an office building, if we were going to turn it into a residence and put it in some kind of a housing lottery, anything like that, that would require a whole separate change of codes.
Okay.
We're allowed to, with some of the modifications we've made and a couple more we'll get done in the next week or two, we're allowed to continue using it as we have been using it.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Hajar?
Yeah, so I appreciate the fact that you folks are reconsidering. I think it's the right thing to do, to have rules and regulations in place. What I'd like to do is submit a slightly updated version for next week's packet. It actually addresses, since we made a lot of comments, actually before we took the vote on shutting it down, you did provide some comments regarding the committee. I have changed that language. Also need to address the numbers that are in the document now versus the 49 that we're saying today. So if it's acceptable to the rest of the board, I would like to submit an updated version, so you don't have to look at the one that you have, because I don't want everyone to get confused about which document to look at.
That's exactly what my motion was.
That's fine. Would it make sense to, I've got the first version. I think there have been 2 iterations. I've got the iteration, the most recent iteration. Would it make sense to just email us the changes?
Sure.
Or would that make more sense?
There aren't a lot of changes.
A red line version
we
would
can,
probably
with
be
the
the
packet.
easiest thing for the board to see.
That's fine.
Okay, all right.
With the copy here, though.
With the
Yes,
packet.
well, of course, always submit a copy to Christine.
Okay,
What
all right.
What should be on the mail.
Good.
I lost my other point.
Join my
Always
club.
else, but it's okay.
Join my club.
Yeah. Jeez. So, okay, I'm satisfied, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you.
I have 2 other items, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Sir,
Thank
by
you.
all means.
December 6th from 1:30 to 3 o'clock, there will be an age-friendly celebration at the Senior Center. The Norwood Senior Center is collaborating with the Elder Care Alliance and the Ponset River Regional Chamber in an effort to get Norwood designated as an age-friendly community. So on December 6th from 1 to 3 o'clock, there's an age-friendly celebration. So it's an opportunity to learn more about the launch of that process and what it means and what the community will be going through the next couple of years as the Senior Center looks to take the lead in making Norwood an age-friendly community. And then following that up on December 10th from 1 to 3 o'clock at the Senior Center is an age-friendly listening session for folks to come and express what they think age-friendly means to them, ways that the community can be more age-friendly as we move forward. We'll be getting these out on the website. Contact the Senior Center, Carrie McCarthy, if you have any specific questions about it. And her and Tom O'Rourke from the Neponset River Chamber are heading up the effort, and kudos to both of them for taking on the task of making Norwood an age-friendly community.
Very
She
good,
didn't
and
even go
kudos to
to
both. Go ahead.
She didn't even go to the ICMA meeting. That was one of the topics of discussion.
She did. She's ahead of the game, ahead of the curve. And then one last item, if we could pull up photo number
If I could
2.
just hold it on
that,
Sorry.
if I could on that.
Mr. Howard has a
on
question.
that,
Sorry.
Just minor bit of clarification, not correction, but clarification. That this really isn't a senior center program. This is from the governor. This is from our governor, this thing. And age-friendly doesn't necessarily mean seniors. It means age-friendly. That, like Carrie this afternoon gave me the example that at the Civic, we're putting in a new light there. That, in my opinion, is mainly for the mothers in the morning who are taking their infants across the street in fear of their lives. And it's sort of an age-friendly program that we're making that intersection safer for the people.
Absolutely. It's about taking a holistic look at your community planning and development through the lens of, are we meeting different age groups and their needs in the community? And
But not seniors only.
correct.
That's the
There's a
point.
particular focus on seniors because there's a lot of things communities can do,
Yeah.
but it's looking at it through that lens.
Right. Thank you.
NCM, if you could pull up to just the second photo, just a quick congratulations to Joe Gerard and our water foreman and Chief George Maurice. They both attended the Mass Municipal Association's Supervisory Leadership Development Program. It's a 6-day course that focuses on supervisory and management skills, and they both graduated with flying colors this past week, so kudos to both of them on that accomplishment.
Congratulations to both of them.
And that is all I have, Mr. Chairman. I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Does it appear
That's
to
it.
be? Mr. Maloney?
All set tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Howard?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like folks to reiterate, because we did have a few people say they'd be interested in going to this Lombardo celebration on Thanksgiving. So once again, the way to do this is to contact the senior center. It's a luncheon at 11:30. The lunch itself is served at Lombardo's, free, on Thanksgiving Day for seniors or people not seniors who are alone on that day and would like to be in a group setting with other people. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. That completes your discussion.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Plasko?
All set, thank you.
Mr. Hajar?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to formally request that we put the financial policies for discussions on next week's agenda.
The financial policies, the towns,
So
this board to discuss it?
the board
The
needs to
ones we have
discuss it.
discussed in the past that involved the 3 different committees.
Boards, yeah.
This board, the school committee, and the finance commission.
So what are we going to discuss on our own?
The latest
Update?
draft. So I think Sharon can provide it to Christina, and it can be in our packets, but we never approved it. People have looked at the video of the meeting, and it was not approved. What was approved was providing the next documentation to include all the feedback that was given by the 15 individuals there. And that's the version that the FinCom reviewed, and they've approved with minor comments that they will bring up. And all I'm asking is that we do the same, so that whenever, if it's in December or January, we all get together again, that we don't waste a lot of time, because we've all looked at them, provide our minor feedback, whatever it is, and then just move along and be done with it.
We have a motion to put that on for next week.
So moved.
I'll
Second.
it.
And I have a second. All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Hopefully hopefully the school department will start taking some action also.
Yes, they do, along with some other items, right. So this morning I had the privilege of attending the Go to School program at the Norwood High School that was sponsored by the Neponset River Regional Chamber. We attended classes in Dr. Crowley's classroom, which dealt with students learning about robotics and trying to build a pump for individuals with type 1 diabetes. It was actually pretty awesome. The students were great. Not only was it hands-on building that they were showing us that each one had to do, they had to be computer savvy, and each one of them were actually very, very articulate on what they were trying to do, accomplish the program and everything. So it was a great time. It was a couple hours of time spending at the high school interacting with the students. So congratulations to Dr. Crowley, who is, as far as I'm concerned, one of the best at that high school.
Yeah, you picked a good
And
class
so,
to attend,
yes,
because he's good,
yeah,
and the
he's-
students in the class are every year also.
Absolutely.
I agree, and Dr. Crowley gets the maximum out of each and every one of those students.
He does.
There's no
He
free
really
rides.
does. No, there isn't. So, I just want to mention about the proposed liquor regulations that will be coming your way in a couple of weeks. I developed a draft. Tony and I talked about it earlier, and I'm meeting with Chief Brooks tomorrow, and then I'll go to Town Council for input, and then come to this board for review. One of the things that we also have to take in consideration is that the proposed liquor regulations that will be before you will include the requirement of certain individuals being quarried and fingerprinted, which towns that have adopted regulations are requiring of those that serve alcohol. As you know, quarry can take care of in-state. The fingerprint takes care of people that have moved here from out of state to know if there's an issue. This will require that we amend our general bylaw 43, which deals with our current fingerprint requirement. David DeLuca is well aware of it, and he's going to propose some language to accommodate, if we accept it, what the regulations should include, and then what the bylaw should state to ensure that we're in sync.
I was just going to ask you if that coordinated with the bylaw, but you're
Yes.
already on top of that.
Yes, absolutely. Just wanted to mention that I received a note and a copy of an article in the November 10th Herald that talked about hidden hazards pertaining to dams in Massachusetts. And the individual was concerned about our two dams. And what was interesting is that, it was a multi-page article in there, and the two photos that accompanied the article was one of the Willett Dam that was done less than 15 years ago, I believe, and then the dam from Ellis to underneath Route 1A. The article itself never mentions Norwood, never mentions the two dams in question, so for those that read it, I don't think we have issues. According to Mark Ryan, our dams are inspected every 2 years by an independent firm that provides a report, and if there are repairs to be made, we make the repairs. And most everything that's come back over the years has been brush-related to prevent blockages of the water so that it's constantly moving. So please don't take that article and think that we have problems. I think we're good, so I just wanted to mention that.
The Willett Dam's also privately owned. The town doesn't actually own the dam.
Right, and that's
So,
changed hands.
It was it's complicated, but we don't actually own the dam, and not that it's any
It's over the
consolation.
Watershed Association, isn't it?
It is, and they
Yeah,
were
the
selling it
budget
to a series of property owners, but that fell through, so they've transferred it to a subsidiary of theirs, probably just a holding company. And not that it's any consolation to our friends in Walpole, but the way that dam is actually situated, if it were to overflow, the low point is actually on the other side of the dam where Walpole is. So while we're certainly very concerned about that, there's actually, even if the water were to come over, there's a very limited risk in Norwood. They're also privately owned dams. It's important to know there's over 100 municipally owned dams that are in rough shape in the Commonwealth, and the state's providing next to no funding for those municipally owned dams. So while there's been an effort the last couple of years to try to get funding to help these privately owned dams, they are privately owned by homeowners associations and nonprofit groups. So we don't own them, and they're ultimately liable for those properties and any damage that they would cause.
It's great until the damage is done, that no one's doing anything. Not on the municipal side, we're fine. I'm talking about the private dams.
Well, that's not necessarily true. The Neponset River Watershed has been working for several years to get feasibility money from the state. They've received about $50,000 in feasibility money, and we've had a lot of conversations about whether or not the 3 towns that would be affected would be willing to petition the state, which we have. We've sent letters in that there are different things. We'd be willing to work with private landowners on their private land in exchange at some point for some sort of public access to the water. So we've been doing what we can reasonably do, but you're effectively petitioning the Commonwealth to spend money on private infrastructure when they're not even spending that same money on public infrastructure.
That's the point. I wasn't criticizing what we're doing or what we're trying to do. The issue is for private owners is they want the free ride because they don't want to spend the money up front, but the liability at the end of the day, then we end up having to try to clean up the mess if something happens. My last one, Mr. Chairman, is just holding up come to us from the Morrow Memorial Library. That's a screen showing on Monday, December 16th in Simone Room at 6:30 p.m. and The Gentleman from Norwood. It's Life and Times of Governor Frank Allen, who was Norwood's only governor from 1910 to 1931. He served as tax assessor, Norwood Selectman, state rep, state senator, state president, lieutenant governor, and governor of Massachusetts. The film is intended to bring to life the untold story of the Honorable Frank Gilman Allen. So feel free to attend. And if you can see on the flyer, it tells you who to call. It's basically 781-769-0200, or stop by the library, and you can sign up and make sure that they have enough room, because there is a capacity limit in the Simone Room, but promises to be a real good event. With
Let's
that,
not forget to mention that the artist that created that piece of work is our own former colleague, Mr. Kelleher.
wow, excellent. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And unless I hear from somebody else, that should be it for the evening with the Selectmen's agenda, which concludes our meeting, I believe, so I'll take a motion.
So move to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion to adjourn until 7 o'clock next week. And a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you and good night.